Brakati Hawaii Haushai, Brakati Hawaii Haushai, Brakati Hawaii Haushai, Brakati Hawaii Haushai, Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushai, Wa Barak, Wa Rapah, Wa Kazak, to the apostles, elders, and the brethren throughout the four corners. I'll say Shalom. And I was just going to do like a video, it's not going to be too long, on people confuse Easter with the Passover. Easter is not the Passover. Regardless of what these bugged out as Christians try to tell you, and the people in the and the people out there in the religious world, Easter is not the Passover. Now, the name Easter does pop up in the Bible, but that's because that was put there in the translation when you go into the New Testament. Because in the New Testament, the word that's supposed to be there, the New Testament was translated into the Greek, which became known as the Septuagint. And this was during the time of the Ptolemaic dynasty that was in Egypt under Ptolemy II Philadelphus, who had our records translated into the Greek. And the word that was put there in the Greek, matter of fact, let's go here. I'm gonna start here and read Acts 12 and 1 on down to 4. Now about that time, Herod the king stretched forth his hands to vex certain of the church, and he killed James, the brother of John, with the sword. And because he saw it pleased the Jews, he proceeded further to take Peter also. Then were the days of unleavened bread. The days of unleavened bread, or the feast of unleavened bread, is at the 14th day at evening, which is the Lord's Passover. That's the Passover, the feast of unleavened bread. It says, and when he had apprehended him, he put him in prison and delivered him to the quaternions of soldiers to keep him, intending after Easter to bring him forth to the people. Now it says intending after Easter to bring him forth to the people. The word that's supposed to be here in the Greek translation is Pascha, which is the equivalent of the Hebrew word Pesach. The word Pascha, I believe in the Greek, means like to skip over. The Hebrew word Pesach, Passover. So Easter was put there because it goes really back to the time of the Council of Nicaea, is when this was implemented. This word Easter was put there because the word Easter is not supposed to be here. Because when this was translated into the Greek, the word that was there was Pascha, which means skip over. Okay, let me just pull this up and go right here to the phrase itself. Quaternions intending after Easter.
Strong's G 3957. Pascha. Pascha.
See? Pascha. That's the Greek way of saying Passover. Pascha. So let me go here. Pascha. The paschal sacrifice which was accustomed to be offered for the people's deliverance of old from Egypt. The paschal lamb, or the Passover lamb, the Israelites were accustomed to slay and eat on the 14th day of the month Nisan, the first month of the year, in memory of the day on which their fathers, preparing to depart from Egypt, were bidden by God to slay and eat the lamb and sprinkle their doorposts with its blood, that the destroying angel, seeing the blood, might pass over their dwellings. It says Christ crucified is linked to the slain paschal lamb. The paschal supper, or what's known as the Last Supper. The Last Supper is the Passover. See, a lot of you, there's one of those old Negro songs called That Upper Room. The upper room, that what was prepared in the upper room. The Passover is what was prepared in the upper room. Okay, not no damn Easter, but the Passover is what was prepared in the upper room. Okay, see, it says Paschal Supper, the Paschal Feast, the Feast of Passover, extending from the 14th to the 20th day of the month Nisan. We didn't name our months, And I believe Nisan, I believe that's a Babylonian or Chaldean term for that month. We didn't name the months. It was called the first day, first month, the 14th day at evening is a Passover. It says Pascha of Chaldee origin, the Passover, meal, day, festival, special sacrifices, connected, and then it says Easter, Passover. Easter is not the Passover. But let me go over here because I mentioned about the upper room. Because a lot of you Christians will be like, see, it says right there in the book of Acts, it says Easter, so we can celebrate Easter. No. Now let me go here. Now I'm gonna go here to Mark 14 and 12, and then I'm gonna explain a little bit and read some other information and close this lesson out. Now this is Mark 14 and 12 on down to about the 15th verse. Mark 14 and 12. And the first day of unleavened bread, which the feast of unleavened bread is what? The Passover, which is the 14th, the first month, 14th day at evening. When they killed the Passover, his disciples said unto him, where wilt thou that we go and prepare that thou mayest eat the Passover, which is the feast of unleavened bread? Passover. And he sendeth forth two of his disciples and saith unto them, go ye into the city, and there shall meet you a man bearing a pitcher of water. Follow him. And wheresoever he shall go in. Say ye to the good man of the house, the master saith, where is the guest chamber where I shall eat the Passover with my disciples? See, there goes the Passover again. And he will show you a large upper room, furnished and prepared. There make ready for us. And his disciples went forth and came into the city and found as he had said unto them, and they made ready the Passover. So the upper room, the Last Supper in the upper room was what? The Passover. For you simple-minded as Christians out there. Passover, not no damn Easter. Now, in the book of Acts 14 and 12, the word Easter is there. Let me go back and read this again. Acts 12 and 4. And when he had apprehended him and put him in prison and delivered him to the 4 quaternions of soldiers to keep him, intending after Easter to bring him forth to the people. And again, like I said, in the translation, right, years later, basically around the time of the Council of Nicaea, which was in the 4th century AD, Mary worship came out of that council and them establishing Easter. Because what they did at the Council of Nicaea was make it so that way pagans can worship right up alongside Christians. So they took paganism and they superimposed it with certain high holy days in the Bible. That's what they did. And those people that did that, those were Israelites that did that, by the way. Those were black men who did that. But they were going off. But now I'm gonna read here in the Bible dictionary, in the NIV Compact Bible Dictionary. This is basically by the same people that make the Zondervan, but this is just the NIV. It says here, it says Easter. The word Easter occurs only in Acts 12 and 4, like I read right there, Acts 12 and 4. It is the day on which most Christians celebrate Jesus' resurrection. There is no celebration of the resurrection in the New Testament. There is no celebration of it in the New Testament, which is true. It says Jewish Christians linked it with Passover. See, it's supposed to be Passover, or the word there in the Greek is Pascha, which is supposed to be Passover. Jewish Christians linked it with Passover, and so observed it on the 14th day of Nisan, regardless of the day of the week. But Gentile believers preferred the resurrection on Sunday. This difference was settled by the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD, which ruled that Easter should be celebrated on the first Sunday after the full moon, following the vernal equinox, which the vernal equinox means equal light in equal night, or vernal means spring, which is basically you got 12 hours of day and 12 hours of night, and then what happens is the morning starts to become the more dominant. the sun stays out longer. Then when you have the autumn equinox, right? 12 hours of light, 12 hours of day, and now the night starts to become the more dominant. But now the vernal equinox already happened. So after the first full moon after the vernal equinox is when they celebrate so-called Easter. That's why from year to year it's on a different date. It's on a different week, different Sunday weekend, because it depends on where the when the full moon comes in. So they established that at the Council of Nicaea. Like I said, they came out of the Council of Nicaea, which ruled that Easter should be celebrated on the first Sunday after the full moon following the vernal equinox. This is the system followed today. The date of Easter varying between March 25th and April 25th. But again, it's supposed to be the word Passover, or in the Greek, since the New Testament was translated into the Greek, Pascha, which is dealing with the Passover. I'm going to pull this up again right here and go back here to the root word. Easter, see? Pascha, Pascha. So now I'm going to go over here and touch on this article since I established that. Origin of Easter from pagan festivals and Christianity to bunnies and chocolate eggs. So let me just go down to get right to the meat. I'm going to go here. This article, by the way, is by News. I guess it's here. It says News, posted April 14th, 2017. So this is an old article, but it has the truth in it. This article is about 4 years old, but the information in it is valid. This section here says Easter's changing date. In 325 AD, which we read in the Bible dictionary, in 325 AD, the first major church council, the Council of Nicaea, determined that Easter should fall on the Sunday following the first full moon after the spring equinox, which I just read in the Bible dictionary. That is why the date moves and why Easter festivities are often referred to as movable feasts. There is a defined period between March 25th and April 25th on which Easter Sunday must fall, and that's determined by movement of the planets in the sun, Professor Cusack said. Now let's go down to here. Now they're telling you Pascha, which is the Greek way of saying Pesach. Pascha, Easter, and the goddess of spring. That's what Easter is about. Celebrating the goddess of spring, which is her name, if I pronounce it right, it's uh, Eostre or Ostra, which is where you get later on it becomes Easter. It says in most countries in Europe, the name for Easter is derived from the Jewish festival of Passover, right? But it's not supposed to be, because it's supposed to be Pesach, or in the Greek, Pascha. There's no Easter. Easter's a pagan holiday that is celebrated by the pagans around the time of the vernal equinox. It has nothing to do with Passover. So in Greek, the feast is called Pascha. In Italian, Pasqua. In Danish, it is Paaski. And in French, it is Paques. Professor Cusack said, but in English-speaking countries and in Germany, Easter takes its name from a pagan goddess from Anglo-Saxon England who was described in a book by the 8th century English monk Bede. Eostre. Eostre was a goddess of spring or renewal, and that's why her feast is attached to the vernal equinox, Professor Cusack said. In Germany, the festival is called Ostern, and the goddess is called Ostera. Now here's a picture of Ostera, 1901, by Johannes Goetz. Spring feasts were led to honor the Anglo-Saxon goddess Eostre, Ostara. See, that's what that is. That's what Easter. Easter is the representation of her. It ain't got nothing to do with the Passover at all. The Passover is the feast of unleavened bread and the celebration of the Israelites uh, escaping captivity from under the hands of the Egyptians, and the Egyptians being killed, the firstborn of the Egyptians being killed on that night. When we had to kill the lamb, we had wine, lamb, and we had bitter herbs. And the unleavened bread, there was bread that was made without yeast in it, because we didn't have time to allow the bread to rise. So you had to bake the bread without leaven, so unleavened bread. That's why it's called the Feast of Unleavened Bread. For 7 days, we eat unleavened bread. And it's Passover because you kill the lamb, you take the blood and put it over the door, around the door, and around the window. And when the death angel came through, the angel seen the blood and passed over your house and went to the next one. That's why it's called Passover. So it's the celebration of the Lord delivering us from the Egyptians. Okay, and not having time to put leaven in the bread so that the bread could rise. So it was unleavened bread. So it's called the Feast of Unleavened Bread. It's escaping captivity or leaving captivity. That's what the Passover is about. It's not about celebrating no damn goddess because the vernal equinox just happened. So now it's a celebration of some damn female, some spring goddess. No, this is bullshit. This is paganism. And in 325 AD, Constantine and them, again, like I said, made it so that way pagans can worship alongside with with Christians. So they took paganism and incorporated it into the Bible. That's what they did. But it's not supposed to be so. So that's why when you go here into Acts the 12th chapter, and again, let me scroll down here, and you see the word Easter, the word that's supposed to be there in the Greek is Pascha. Okay, but these pagans, okay, put the word Easter there. Because when you go into the Old Testament, it's the word Passover, the Feast of Unleavened Bread, which is the Lord's Passover, which is the 14th, which is the first month, the 14th day at evening. The Feast of Unleavened Bread, the Passover. It ain't got nothing to do with no Easter and no bunnies and laying no eggs. I'm going to go back to this article and read a little bit more and then close this out. Because I wasn't going to make this too long, but I wanted to show that Easter is not the Passover. It says many of the pagan, it says rabbits and eggs as ancient symbols of new life. You notice even to this day, uh, uh, in the rabbits are known for what? For being able to have sex at a rapid rate and produce a lot of babies, and it's dealing with fertility. They're known to be very fertile. That's what it's dealing with. And it says rabbits, eggs, and ancient symbols of new life. Many of the pagan customs associated with the celebration of spring eventually became absorbed within Christianity as symbols of the resurrection of Jesus. These symbols have nothing to do with Yahweh Shai being raised on the third day after the Passover. This has nothing to do with that. It's paganism. Eggs as a symbol of new life became a common people's explanation of the resurrection. After the chill of the winter months, nature was coming to life again, Professor Cusack said. During the Middle Ages, people began decorating eggs and eating them as a treat following Mass on Easter Sunday after fasting through Lent. This is actually something that still happens, especially in Eastern European countries like Poland, Professor Cusack says. Now, check this. You notice the so called Jews, right? Then when they have their Passover, I believe that's the same time that the so called Christians have their Easter celebration. I believe it's pretty much at the same time the so called Jews have their Passover. When the so called Jews have their Passover, they'll have lamb, they'll have wine, they'll have bitter herbs, and they'll have eggs. There's no reason to have no eggs. They have hard boiled eggs at their Passover. Why? Because they've incorporated paganism. That's why so-called Jews, when they do a Passover, they have hard-boiled eggs along with lamb, with bitter herbs, and with wine. All right, and then they had that unleavened bread, that matzah, that dry ass matzah shit that they eat. But they have eggs because they're pagans. They're just as pagan as these damn Christians. They're a bunch of damn pagans to themselves. They're not the people of the Lord, by the way. These so-called Jewish people walking around with a curl hanging off the side of their head, those are not the people of the Lord. Those are Edomites that are fronting like they're Israelites. All right, that's what they are. They're Edomites, and that's why during when they have their so-called Passover, and this so-called Christian church has their Easter, I believe the same day that the so-called Jews celebrate their Passover. That's why they have those eggs when they have their Passover, because it goes back to the worship of Eostre. Okay, it goes back to the worship of Eostre and dealing with spring and life springing forth, eggs, fertility. There's no reason the Bible don't tell you to have no eggs with the Passover. Lamb, bitter herbs, unleavened bread, and wine. Those are the four things to have at the Passover, not eggs. So I'm gonna read a little bit more. The custom of decorating hard-boiled eggs or blown eggs is still a very popular folk custom. Rabbits and hares are also associated with fertility and were symbols linked to the goddess Eostre. Again, the goddess Eostre. That's what this is in representation of. The first association of the rabbit with Easter, according to Professor Cusack, was a mention of the Easter hare in a book by German professor of medicine George Frank von Frankenau, published in 1722. He recalls a folklore that hares would hide the colored eggs that children hunted for, which suggests to us that as early as the 18th century, decorated eggs were hidden in gardens for egg hunts, Professor Cusack said. So, what the hell is that? That's paganism. When the Lord told them to go prepare the Passover in the upper room, they didn't go and take no damn eggs and paint them and hide no eggs. This has nothing to do with the Lord. This has nothing to do with the Bible. This has nothing to do with biblical history whatsoever. This is paganism that was incorporated into the scriptures by Constantine the Great and the men at the Council of Nicaea, and that's it. That's all it is. Um, so, like I said, I wasn't going to make this long, and let me touch on this again. So, let me read this again about the upper room to clear it because it's Passover, not Easter. Mark 14 and 12. I'm going to read it again. And the first day of unleavened bread, when they killed the Passover, which is the 14th, the first month, 14th day at evening, his disciples said unto him, where wilt thou that we go and prepare that thou mayest eat the Passover? Okay, Passover. So now I want to read this scripture real quick about the gods and the things that these other nations worship. I think it's Psalms. Let me check this one right here. Psalms 96 and 5. It says, for all the gods of the nations are idols, but the Lord, Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, made the heavens. Remember that. For all the gods of the nations are idols, but the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahushai made the heavens. So that's what I wanted to say on the fact of Easter is not the Passover. So don't confuse the two, even though the word Easter is in the book of Acts, the 12th chapter. It's supposed to be Pascha, which is the Greek way of saying Pasak, which is Passover. Psalms 96 and 5. For all the gods of the nations are idols, but the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahushai made the heavens. So I hope you learned something, and stay tuned. And with that, I'm going to say shalom.